Good evening, everybody. I guess we'll get started. Thank you all for coming to the Souhegan River Multi-Use Trail Project Local Concerns Meeting. The point of tonight's meeting is to seek input from the public on the Souhegan River Trail project that we're proposing to do. First, I'll start with the project team. I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director. We've got our consultant is Quantum Construction Consultants, Jim Bouchard, Lisa Martin, Nikki Polish, and we have our engineering interns, Steve McFadden and Evan Silva. So the project that we're proposing to do started really a long time ago, and it started with the Town Center Committee, who is a committee of the Town Council who came up with a proposal of different trails and sidewalks throughout the town. The project we're specifically talking about is their trail priority projects number 1 and 2. And what those projects would do, well, they would connect Watson Park, which is across from the Central Fire Station, up to the Merrill's Marauders Bridge, which is a pedestrian bridge adjacent to the Merrill's Marauders Turnpike Bridge through the woods. Here's a little bigger picture of what we're talking about. So Watson Park is right down here. The trail would start on the east side of Daniel Webster Highway in Watson Park, somehow make its way across Daniel Webster near the fire department, and come up through the woods until it gets to the pedestrian bridge up by the turnpike. The great thing about this trail system is it'll connect all sorts of other trails. You can get to the high school trail through there. You can get to the trails behind the Wildcat Falls Conservation Area. In addition to other parts of town, you can get to West Chamberlain Road from there as well. So it really increases the impact of the trail system in Merrimack. With that, I'll turn it over to Jim. He can talk a little bit about the process of the program, the funding of the program, and those kind of things.
Thanks, Kyle. Through Kyle's efforts, the town's efforts, the town was awarded they sought application for a transportation alternative program funding through DOT Federal Highway. They were successful, and that's what's paying 80% of the project that he's basically described to everybody today. So, federally funded. Oh boy, people put their ears on, they cover their ears, head, neck goes up. Federally funded has some nuances to it. You got to follow a process, and it is not all that encumbering as most people think. It involves a multi-step process. There starts with a feasibility study. Once the town is given a notice to proceed by DOT, it's essentially a 4-step process. Feasibility study, i.e., develop alternatives, look at them, and come up with a program. We'll talk about that a little further down the line. Then you get into the design and permitting phases of the project. Once the feasibility study has been approved, DOT gives you an approval to move into design, and you go through that. And permitting involves a full ration of environmental, cultural resources, and a few other things that can come up along the way, depending on what's out there in the corridor. Once we get through all that process, and we've successfully gotten all the permits for it, we go into the bidding process, generally 4 weeks to 5 weeks, depending on a 30-day period, and the solicitation, put everything together, you award a contract, and then the construction contract starts. Relatively simple, just as long as you follow all the I's and T's that go along. And Quantum, we've been doing this now for, Lisa and I have been doing this for a number of years. We've done a number of federally funded projects. We've done TE, which are transportation enhancement projects. One of the reasons the town selected us because of our expertise in following through on this. The permitting process has one nuance to it, and I'd like to speak to that real quick. It's called the National Environmental Policy Act. This was created to make sure that any project federally funded covers all bases. For the project covers all bases. Are we impacting air quality? Is there noise impacts to this project? Is the project impacted by noise impacts? Is there environmental? Do we have endangered species? Do we have wetlands? Do we have critter passages that have to be taken care of? There's about 13 items on what we call a categorical exclusion checklist that we have to go through, document, and provide all this up to DOT. They go through it. They can, and if they confer with our results, saying that it is eligible for exclusion, that there is no significant impacts to any of these resources, then the project moves very quickly into the wetland permitting phases, and sometimes that's ongoing at the same time. So the NEPA process is probably one of the most tenuous processes we have to follow through with. It does take a number of negotiations with DOT, but it actually, in all intents and purposes, makes the project easier permitting-wise than the old days. So I only bring that up because a lot of people hear NEPA, they get all concerned. Oh my God, we got to do this federal process. It's not that tenuous in terms of slowing the project down. Project schedule. The town was very successful. They got a notice to proceed for this project in March of 2016. They promptly Kyle picked up the phone and goes, "Hey, I don't know what you're doing right now, but get going." Okay, we can do that. We can do that. And so we started off, and this is one of the very first things we have to do. Other than we did some site walks, some data acquisitions. We've pulled together some of the town's resources for this, like mapping that the town already had for the Souhegan Trail, mapping for Chamberlain Bridge. We pulled in DOT plans. So we've been doing a data collection process now. But the very first thing we have to do is do this local concerns meeting. We want to hear what you have to provide to us, things that we have to know about, things that you'd like to see incorporated, things that may be of an influence to the final design that the town wants to put into construction. And so that's why this meeting is very important. Following this meeting, we will then develop the purpose and needs statement, which will be submitted to the DOT for their review, and it also gets incorporated into our final feasibility study. So we're in that process. We have October 16th as a deadline for submitting our draft feasibility study to the DOT and to the town. At that point, we'll have another one of these meetings, except it won't be a local concerns meeting. Hopefully, at that point, it will be a public presentation of the alternative that has been selected, and we can go through all that. Following that, preliminary design, NEPA permitting will all be done by June 2017. Final design anticipated by September 2017, bidding the project November 2017, and everybody goes, wait a minute, you're going to build it in the wintertime? No. What happens is we have to go through a whole process of submittals. Contractors have to get their materials. Everything gets, any alternative designs or any designs for some of the materials that or methodologies that would be used have to be submitted. So we go through about a 2-month period of that. So come springtime, the contractors are actually ready by that time to start putting putting machinery to the earth and get moving. So it'll be a summertime construction, and the idea would be completed by the fall time of 2018. Yep, long way off, but as we were just commenting, where did June go? Tomorrow's July, and so it does go by fast. That being said, we tend to run these two. I just want to break this up. We tend to run this sort of interactive too. So if you folks have any questions that come up along the way, just feel free to pop them up. This is being recorded, so we'll have to hand you the mic, and so you can state it so it gets onto the recording. If you prefer, we get through everything, and then we can have a general Q&A at the end. Project overview. Lisa and I are prepared to kind of go through this, and I'm going to kind of flip it around from what Kyle discussed. Kyle started you at Watson's Park, and he moved you out to Merrill Marauders. We're going to go out to Merrill Marauders, and we're going to come back the other way. And the only reason being is that trail is going to be is probably the easiest 7/8 of the project, to be honest with you. There is an existing trail out there. It has to be improved to to federal highway requirements, which is approximately 10 feet wide. And but it's easier to do. We start at Marauders out here. Here's the existing pedestrian bridge. We're going to essentially follow most of the alignment through the woods. And along the way, if for those people that are intimately familiar, you use it a lot. There's one footbridge that has been constructed over a drainage area. That will have to be evaluated as we go forward to meet the federal criteria. There's another one down here. I'm going to change seats on you right here. We get into here. And there's another little footbridge. Just to give you some idea of where we are, the high school athletic fields are right back in here, some of the lower fields. And then we keep going. The power lines, if anybody's intimately familiar with those, are out in here. And then we keep going. The trail keeps going through the woods. And what we're not showing is that some of the improvements that are out there. There's a number of areas with benches and overlooks for the Souhegan River. We just haven't incorporated them into this at this point. It's just a matter of this because this is fact-finding. You have a great little area. It keeps on going until you get to this nice meadow area looking out towards the fire station, i.e. the former impoundment area for the dam. There is a drainage swale comes down through here. The ravine, at least, is about, what do we figure, 7 feet deep out, something like that. And so we're going to have to cross that some way. So the trail ends here. We've shown this coming out here, and then everybody goes, wait a minute, what happened to the rest of the trail? Well, we actually moved it to another sheet. What happens here is we've actually developed a couple options of how to get through this. And to this point, I'm going to kind of flip it over to Lisa because Lisa's more intimate, aware of the structural and the needs that we have to be addressed as we go through what is the town center committee's preferred alternative and what they were hoping to develop. So why don't you take it?
Okay, thank you, Jim. As Jim said, we sort of looked at how we have to get across this ravine over the wetland area behind the fire station. From that point, we have to look at how do we get over to Watson Park. We've looked at a few, we're throwing ideas at you, but we want, if you have some other idea, we want to hear it. We are looking right now at the two alternatives. One is to come down through the old dam sluiceway and come under the bridge. Chamberlain Bridge has another canal that you probably don't see from the roadway, but underneath it there is a second arch. And we would come through there into the old outfall and somehow from there need to connect to Watson Park. There is sidewalks in Watson Park, and so we're looking for ideas of how do we come through here and connect. We do have to deal with an AUR site, which is contaminated soils, and that's part of the project. And the second alternative, essentially, that we've been looking at would be to come up across the ravine, come up behind the fire station. We have to climb that bank somehow, and we'll have to work at that, and come along the upper portion of the canal, come across in front of the fire station, in front of some of the shops here, and cross over up in this area into the park. That, of course, would involve traffic signals, and we need to work the potential of it. Did you want to comment on that? But we are looking for feedback on what would you like to see. I mean, we know that we've got a trail that we really sort of have to follow the alignment along the stream, but once we get to the point where it ends, from there on out, we need to get ideas of where you would like the trail to be and what you'd like it to look like.
Allow me to add a couple of things that we also have to do. We have to look at the federal funding does come with some program elements that have to be included into it. One is that by definition it has to be a hard surface trail. You know the woods trail is sort of on natural ground and everything. Hard surface being that it doesn't necessarily have to be paved. It can be stone dust. It just has to be easily walked on, biked on, or along that way. It has to be now. They used to be their requirement was 8 feet width. They now require 10 feet in width. So the trails, any crossings we do out here of the ravine, these footbridges, and if they get upgraded, and there's a couple other drainage swales we notice out there may need a culverts or something like that. You just got to make sure a trail width is 10 feet of width. We have to have various signages that have to go along with this to direct people from Watson Park through here. They might even have a general sign saying to Merrill Marauders and what on, but to give them indication, just, the idea is to keep people on the trail and not off on, a lot of times these trails end up on private properties by easement. In this case, it's all on town or school property, so it's not really an issue, but we want to keep them on the trail area or keep them directed. There are some interconnecting trails that have been developed, and as part as the thing goes on, there may be some signage to say here to the school athletic fields or whatever. But there's signage that has to be put into this. And then we have the whole question of there is some ADA compliance. Again, the hard surfaces, making sure there's no severe drop-offs if there are. And for the most part, the river trail doesn't have it, but you got protection. The bridge has got to have pedestrian. It actually got to have bike rails on them. If we end up with a pedestrian bridge or going across out in here, so we have to go through the ADA compliance for the project also. So that sort of brings us to where we are now. It's public comments. We look forward to hearing from you. These will get incorporated into our feasibility, into our study goals. As I mentioned, we need to do a purpose and need statement. We're going to do some alternative analysis. As Lisa mentioned, how do we get through here? What are, and all these analyses come with cost estimates. We evaluate the surface route, look at the crossings. Do we need to have hawk signals up there, which are very high density crosswalk signal for pedestrian? Cost estimates. Essentially, what everything leads up to is we've taken the town's comments, townspeople's input, incorporated the best we can do in here. We've identified them first in the front of the project, start of the project. Incorporate them. We have to come up with a alternative in working with DOT that is what they call it. And I got to look at this because I keep forgetting. It is it's the least environmentally damaging practicable alternative, i.e. It has to have the lowest cost, it has to have the most benefit, and it has to be the most judicious use of lands and resources so you don't endanger the environment. So that's what all this process for the feasibility study culminates into in October, i.e. that's why it's one of the longest processes in the whole of the whole process, the longest phase of the whole process. So that being said, I'm done talking for a while. Kyle, Lisa, anybody?
Jim, I will add that on the existing trail, if we were to follow it to a T, there are some trees that would not allow a 10-foot width, and that would need to be cut. However, as part of that, we're looking at, well, okay, maybe we don't want to cut this tree. If we move the trail a little bit, we don't need to cut a tree. So that in part of our design process, we want to do the least environmentally damaging alternative. So.
Thank you. So with that, we'll open it up to comments. We can take some questions, but really the focus of the rest of this meeting is taking input from all of you. So if anyone would like to comment.
I'm George May. I'm with the Souhegan Watershed Association, and I think this is a terrific idea. I think this is great. Two comments. One, wherever the trail opens up and there's a view of the river, it'd be nice to have park benches where people could just sit and watch the river flow downstream. In other words, it doesn't have to be just a hiking trail. People might walk in there, sit, have lunch, enjoy the river, go fishing, do whatever. Nice, low-cost thing. I'd be in favor of the arch path routing going under the highway using the old dam structure. And I haven't really scouted it because it's a pretty scary area. But I know that there's more open concrete area north, I guess, of the sluiceway so that like stairs could come up, just almost just as soon as you cross the road there. Or you can continue on down to the opening right at the river. The problem with the opening right at the river is it's right at the river. So there might be a way of getting a stairs or something that would come up into the park.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Bill ONeill. The proposed pathway in the orange stripe there, does that go underneath the roadway? And if it does, is it give you the 10-foot width that you need?
Yeah, yes, it does. It is wide enough to get a 10-foot path in there, and actually have continue to have green space. If you look down in the sluiceway now, it's pretty green. It's vegetated. I think it's 16.5 feet wide, so we can put a 10-foot path in and still maintain, approximately 3 feet of vegetated area on both sides to walk down through there. And part of our analysis is what do we have to do at the head gate area. Where there's two gates for the former dam and the impoundment area, we have to review what we can do up in that area for passage.
Okay, I think looking at that overall, that would probably be the safest and most expeditious route to go. Number one, you wouldn't have to involve crossing the highway. And number two, it would probably give you a much easier access to Watson Park more directly. And I think you get more usage out of that instead of trying to figure out how to get people across the front of the fire station all up along, the highway there and then try and cross up further up. I mean, that would be a real problem.
If I may clarify just a little bit, one of the things we have to evaluate in our alternatives is also the do-nothing. How does the do-nothing approach benefit the town? Well, it doesn't. I mean, so we have to go through a bunch of scenarios. And that's, we agree with you that it needs to be evaluated, and doing our analysis, safety would be incorporated into it, as you've just mentioned. We also have to look at, one of a surface route as an alternative. But we appreciate the comment. It's very good.
Thanks.
Hi, Tom Koenig, 1 Danforth Road, Merrimack. I'm also on the town council, just so you know. I think this is a great idea. I'm really excited about having the trail along the river. I agree also that we ought to do everything we can to look for the sluiceway as the way to go from a safety perspective. I really can't imagine sending people up the highway like that, nor how are we going to find a 10-foot wide area there. The sidewalk's not that wide along some of those areas. It would be an extremely difficult thing to do. The cost of the light maintenance and everything else would be a difficult thing. So it makes a lot more sense if it's possible for us to just get people into Watson Park directly. And that's what I see as one of the main draws here, is people can be attracted to Watson Park, easily disperse out and go up the river, go see Wildcat Falls, things of that nature. So I'm really encouraged by the whole program and appreciate your efforts here. Thank you.
My name's Nelson Disco, and I'm chairman of the Town Center Committee. This whole concept sprang out of discussions held by the Town Center Committee over a number of years, in which we developed this central plan for the town center, as Kyle pointed out, and this was a piece of it that was conceived by members of the committee. I will say that regarding the route, we have always considered the route through the sluiceway to be the optimum. It certainly provides a safe crossing of Route 3. I think sending people up Route 3 to another traffic light in town would just be a showstopper, in my view, to try and route people that way. They won't do it. They'll walk across and cut across. So I think that would not be a safe way or an optimum way to bring people across, especially when that sluiceway is there. It's been there for maybe 100 years, and it's in good condition. We've walked through it, examined it, and find it quite optimum. There are some issues. I agree that when you exit the sluiceway to get into Watson Park, you have some obstacles. And on the the west side of the sluiceway, you have some obstacles in that gate structure that was pointed out. Those need some alteration to make a path through there. But I think that is the proper way to go and the correct way to go. I will say that the fire department, which is right there on the corner, has endorsed this project, and they are very interested to have a connection from their buildings or their property to this trail when it's done the way I just described. So that goes with it. I want to point out also that we've had some donations of different things. There have been some plaques donated to the town that we want to find a home for. One of them identifies the site of the former Merrimack Village Dam, and we need a place to mount that. These are details now that are maybe a little beyond tonight's hearing, but things to keep in mind. We've also had some offers of donations of benches already for people who want to do what George was suggesting, places to sit, watch the river, and that sort of thing. So those are important. The connecting trails are also important to identify as you go along. You talked about, I know there's a cross-country trail that connects into the high school, and they use it for training, and they go up through all the trails, and so it would be good to identify those and let people know where they are. The bridge across you called it I've forgotten what you called it. Called it a ravine. That was the word that caught my eye. I never thought of it as a ravine, but it is yeah. We do need a bridge there, and we'd like it to be a bridge that's attractive to look at. I think that the view of these things, amenities that we're talking about, especially as they go through that meadow that was formerly a wetland and is no more a wetland, that we could make something attractive that would look good from the road, from the highway, as people go through to replace the site of the former dam and so on that was there. That was an attractive site with some problems, and this would be an opportunity to do something attractive in that area. So those are my comments for the moment. Thank you.
Jackie Flood, Six Shore Drive. I'm a member of the Town Center Committee and on the Town Council too. But I was also the original chairman of the Watson Park Committee when Mr. Watson gave us the money to purchase the land. And this is just a perfect example of taking something and expanding on it to make a beautiful thing. The park has always been river-centric in that it runs along the Souhegan River, and we were present as a committee when the dam was removed. And Pennachuck gave us several gifts for the mitigation of the historical nature of the bridge, one of which is that plaque you're referring to. And one is that, I think it says, I can't even remember what it says, but I think it's where the drop goes, where a drop of water goes. It's up by the garden up on DW Highway. And we were aware of that sluiceway right from the beginning when a team of architects, I think, gathered when Mr. Watson first gave us the money. And that's the first I saw of it, is on that charrette, that original charrette that night 10 or 11 years ago. So we always hoped that this would come to fruit. And I'm just thrilled at the idea. It's extremely densely used. That park, it's amazing. But sometimes the parking lot is full on a Sunday with people waiting in the river, the Souhegan. And this way there will be you can park at the high school, you can park on Courier Road, wherever you want, and walk down and know that you can jump in that river when you're through, or go farther to the and to fish and where the brook meets the river. So it's really very water centric, and I think this is a wonderful addition. Mr. Watson would be very pleased if he saw it.
Any other comments?
George May again. One other thought on the using the sluiceway. That area is an area that eventually something is going to have to be done, whatever. So this is an opportunity to kind of like do two things at the same time to fix a problem that's already there. The other is a question. I saw on the map that you have on the trail here a connection, dotted line connection up to Twin Bridges, the Twin Bridges Park. Could you talk about that at all? On the next map.
Oh.
Going up along there.
Yeah, this is another goal of the Town Center Committee, and it shows up on this map as well. If I get my bearings here. Yeah, it connects up here. That is a goal of the Town Center Committee, to connect it up into Twin Bridge Park. It's also a goal to extend sidewalks up Daniel Webster, past the bridge by Pinenbergs, and up to Twin Bridge Road that way, and to make that a whole circle area as well. We'll look to explore other opportunities for that in the future, but that, as part of this project, is not part of the project.
Being looked at.
Certainly. The just a little background on the process, I guess, which will kind of answer that question. So probably a year and a half ago, or almost 2 years ago now, the state sent out a request for potential projects for the TAP funding, which is the Transportation Alternatives Program. We submitted a letter of interest, and then we followed up with the full application. And in the application, we had to be very specific on what the goals of the project were. And the goals of that project were the priority 1 and 2 trails as developed by the Town Center Committee, which is what the project has to focus on. We can't, the feds won't allow us to add to the project at this point. We can always apply it for another TAP grant in the future. But for the purposes of this project, that's what we put in the application. That's what we have to go with.
One more thing I forgot, which you reminded me of as you were speaking, is the repair to the sidewalk that is presently on the east side of Route 3 and north of the bridge. That's one of the that part of the project helped to trigger this whole thing, and which is where the reason the town is contributing money to this is to make that a safer sidewalk connecting the bridge to the sidewalk system that we have, such as it is along Route 3. So I think that's important to note, that that's an important safety feature that's, I believe, has to be included with this whole project. I mean, if the route went the other way, they might forget about that. I just want to point that out. It would be another reason to go use the sluiceway route, because you've got to go in there and do that repairing anyway as part of the project.
Thank you, Nelson. That is correct. But that's one of the things that gets ferreted out in this process, in the feasibility study, is to, if we can get the byproduct of fixing that sidewalk, that's certainly our hope. But the feasibility study that Quantum performs and the input from the public is what drives the end product, and hopefully it works out. We'll know in October.
Jay Bruley, I won't take much of your time here. I wanted to just voice my concerns quickly. I was fortunate to serve on the Merrill's Marauders Bridge Trails Committee for a few years, back before we were disbanded. And this project back then was stated to have been completed by now. So I would just like to remind the town folks that this is a important project for everybody from Turkey Hill, from Amherst Road all the way up to Coda Road, all of those side streets. Whenever Turnpike has basically bisected this town and made it very hard for us to walk or anything or bike down to the Watson Park area, the center of town, especially elderly folks, little kids on bikes. That whole center of town is cut off from us. And this project was supposed to originally connect basically 30% of the town population to easily walking or biking distance to the Watson Park area. And I would urge, without having missed the first half an hour here, I won't rehash anything, but I would hope that this is moving forward and that red tape does not further delay us, and that it is a project that people have been waiting for years. It's been going on I was on that committee for several years, and now it's been disbanded for several years. This is probably at least 10 years in here, and we're still not connected. So people's kids are growing, people are getting older, and we're going through our lives here, and we'd like this to, I understand there's funding issues or whatever, but put out the call to the town. We will volunteer if there's fundraisers to do, or, but we count on you to get through this red tape portion so that this could get done, and hopefully it won't be too much blowback from easements and the fire department land use or whatever other ailments that are going to run into it. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, that's some great comments. Anybody have anything else to add? Particular concerns environmentally, historically? Well, that's great. I appreciate everybody coming. We're really excited about this project. We've got a great project team working on it, and I really think it's going to be a big success. And most of the credit goes to the Town Center Committee, the Town Council folks who approved all of this stuff and allowed us to work on it. So I'm really excited. We'll be around for a little while if anyone has specific questions they want to talk about off air, and we can, I guess, close the meeting with there. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
I should add, there are some comment sheets over on the table. This meeting is going to become part of the public record that's submitted to DOT and Federal Highway as part of the NEPA process that Jim talked about. And anyone who would like to submit comments later is free to do so. This meeting will air on television, so if you know anyone who wants to watch it, feel free to do so, and they can submit comments after the meeting as well to Jim and Lisa at Quantum. And Nelson has some trail maps that Steve will pass around to anyone who wants a copy of it. Thank you all.
Thanks.